Our first reading is from Unitarian preacher William Ellery Channing. His 1828 sermon, Likeness to God. In 1828, William Ellery Channing delivered a sermon in which he preached that we humans discover the nature of God by looking within. Channing wrote, and here I quote his sermon, "Whence do we derive our knowledge of the attributes and perfections which constitute the Supreme Being? We derive them from our own souls. The divine attributes are first developed in ourselves, and thence transferred to our Creator. The idea of God, sublime and awful as it is the idea of our own spiritual nature, purified and enlarged to infinity. In ourselves are the elements of divinity. We call God a mind. That unbounded spiritual energy which we call God is conceived by us only through consciousness, through knowledge of ourselves. I am aware that we receive our idea of God from the universe, and so not exclusively from our own souls. The effect and signs of God's power and goodness are apparent throughout the whole of creation. But apparent to what? Not the outward eye, but to our kindred mind, which interprets the universe. We see God around us because God dwells within us." Here ends the first reading. The second reading is the poem, Now I Become Myself, by May Sarton. Now I become myself. It's taken time, many years and places. I have been dissolved and shaken, worn other people's faces, run madly as if time were there, terribly old, crying a warning, "Hurry, you'll be dead," before what? Before you reach the morning? Or the end of this poem is made clear? Or love made safe behind a walled city? Now, to stand here, to be here, to feel my own weight and density. The black shadow on the paper is my hand, the shadow of a word as thought shapes the shaper, falls heavily on the page, is heard. All fuses now, falls into place, from wish to action, word to silence. My work, my love, my time, my face, gathered into one intense gesture of growing like a plant, as slowly as the ripening fruit, fertile, detached, and always spent, falls, but does not exhaust the root. So all this poem is all it can give. It grows in me to become a song, made so and rooted by love. Now there is time, and time is young. Oh, in this single hour I live, all of myself, and do not move. I, the pursued who madly ran, stand still, stand still, and stop the sun. Here ends the second reading. I thank Susan Werner for this song. May I suggest? May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons that were just beyond your sight. The reasons why I suggest to you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a world that's been addressed to you, intended only for your eyes. A secret world, like a treasure chest to you, of private scenes and brilliant dreams that mesmerize. A tender lover's smile, a tiny baby's hands, the million stars that fill the turning sky at night. Oh, I suggest to you, oh, I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a hope that's been expressed in you, the hope of 7 generations, maybe more. This is the faith that they invest in you. It's that you'll do one better than was done before. Inside the slowly setting sun. This is a song with a request of you to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, oh, we'd give anything for one more hour of light. And I suggest this is the best part of your life. So here come the questions that follow that song. What sustains you? What stills your mind when fear floods your thinking and anxiety wakes you in the night and interrupts your sleep? What lifts your spirit when the weight of illness or loneliness descend? What brings calm when a deep awareness of your mortality is made real? Or when the loss of a loved one looms right there? Has something ever happened to you or to a loved one so that you experience being dissolved and shaken, as May Sarton observes? And then what happened? What happened so that despite the hurt, the anger, the loss, you're still here? You're here and not curled up in bed, unable to move. All my life, I've thought of myself as a person of faith. Even so, I have descended to dark places. My father's alcoholism, physical abuse at the hand of my ex-husband, my mother's brain aneurysm and her death at the age of 56. The anxiety that I carry that I have not been enough or done enough. To survive and heal, I had to learn to listen to my own rising and defiant spark. Today, we struggle in response to the tearing apart of the fabric of our national consciousness by ideologies, by guns, by hate. There is plenty out there for which the response can be fear, rage, or suicide. In fact, and I quote, over the past decade, the number of American children and teens who have been admitted to children's hospitals for reporting suicidal thoughts has doubled. And suicide is the third leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 24. Experts from the Pew Research Center agree that there is more stress today than in previous generations. And parents are at a loss and have not taught their children the coping skills needed to survive. One thing I've learned about the white supremacist Midwestern culture that I was raised in is that it regards as admirable when I control and tamp down my emotions. Actions or emotional reactions that are too big, too showy, too effusive do not, in my family white culture, demonstrate a proper restraint and balance between thinking and feeling. Have you ever considered that actions derided as too brash, too loud, too angry may be necessary to face the very real monsters that appear in our lives? Monsters like racism, ravaging illness, war, carceral injustice, sex abuse, economic injustice, family violence, debilitating depression, anxiety, and a well of grief so deep that keening is the proper response. When we acknowledge our monsters, and if we can share how we coped, how we got through, we teach others how to survive. Balance, May Sarton writes, is the act to stand and truly feel our own weight, its density, its shadows, its silence, and its fruit. When I have acknowledged all of myself, owning the actions, yes, even the actions that I took in rage or in fear, and owning my shame, then I have known grace. That is, I learn, I know the love that can build self-forgiveness, courage, and my own wholeness. So I'm going to share with you one experience that blew up my equilibrium. And it was when Tony and I, my spouse Tony and I, took my 56-year-old brother Wayne into our home to live with us. Wayne was a divorced, straight, white man who achieved a PhD in educational technology. He taught for several universities online, and he lived alone in his large home in Columbia, Georgia. He had a sharp, biting wit, and he used that wit to make disparaging comments about queers and my being a lesbian. In December of 2016, he fell in his home. He hit his head, and a day later, when the police found him, his body temperature was 88.6 degrees. He nearly died. At Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, we were told that his liver and his kidneys were failing. He could go home and we could contact hospice, or Tony and I could move him to a Chicago hospital where he might be able to receive a liver and a kidney transplant. In January of 2016, he was moved from Atlanta to Chicago's Rush Hospital. Once there, we were then told, after several days hospitalized, that his Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance from Georgia was no longer valid. He now had no insurance. My sister Lisa a traveler with us on this horrific journey, scrambled to find him health insurance in the marketplace. Once discharged from Rush, he moved into Tony and my home so we could take care of him. Twice a week, we rose at 5 a.m. so we could get him dressed and out the door and take him to dialysis. Doctor appointments tripled. I was working 2 part-time jobs as a clinical social worker and as a minister of a small congregation, and now I had a 3rd job. As his body and his energy failed, his paranoia grew, and so did my frustration. I was working those jobs 6 days a week, and that's when I found that he hid bills, and he secretly was ordering foods from Amazon that he should not eat. He was hospitalized when I found those hidden bills. I was so angry that he lied in that state of paranoia. He wouldn't let us pay them. He wouldn't let us access his accounts. So when I saw him at the hospitals, I took that wad of bills and I threw them in his lap on the hospital bed, and I said, "Fine, fine, you pay them. Who's gonna take care of this? Who's gonna take care of you? How are we gonna handle this? You deal with it." My brother Wayne was 57 years old when he died. In June of 2016. He had lived with Tony and I for 5 months. As co-executor of his estate, I have paid off over 30 different health care bills to various providers. One adjusted medical bill alone from Rush Hospital was over $56,000. What's my point? My life was completely disrupted. And there were times I was so ashamed, especially of my behavior in the hospital that day. And I felt so lost and so angry and so out of control. Tony and I risked our quiet-ish life when we opened our home and took him in. And while I wouldn't wish what happened on anyone, here's the grace, the amazing thing. There were moments of sweetness and wholeness and acceptance with my brother Wayne. He transformed that I recall and now that I cherish. Like when he said he saw the love we shared in our home because we said goodbye to each other any time one of us left to go anywhere, and we gave each other a hug or a kiss on the cheek. Or when he and I sat and ate ice cream together, laughing and remembering our childhood. Those are priceless moments of grace. It was a time of both great pain and great love. We manage our daily lives, bruised by grief and battered by a multiplicity of frustrations, misconceptions, injustices. We may blow up, we may make lousy choices, we may snap at a loved one with withering words. We may recall any number of experiences for which we are deeply ashamed. But we become more truly ourselves when we stand with our whole, wait. And we take the risks we must take to own ourselves and to live with love. Once upon a time, I believed that as a good girl and an educated white female, made in the image of the divine, I should maintain order. I should seek control over my emotions, and I should never, ever show vulnerability or rage. Now, if I had held on to those misconceptions, and the biggest misconception that maintaining balance will protect me from pain, I would have blocked my mind and my body from the emotions I needed to feel. And I never would have taken the journey of vulnerability that guides my growing. The paths we take to become ourselves take many years and many, many places. As May Sarton shares, we are indeed dissolved and shaken. We hide away perceptions at times, wearing masks of other people's faces. Times will come when sorrow, pain, or rage well up within you, and you will feel vulnerable and lost. May I suggest to you that you reach deep within and find the blessing of your truer sense of personhood at that time. And whatever you name the mystery that breaks into soul or consciousness, be it God or Defiant spark, or Channing's term, unbounded spiritual energy, or the hope of 7 generations, maybe more, may I suggest that you listen for it, even when the monsters are roaming, and do then what is needed for your soul. Emote, express, be real. May I suggest that you teach your young ones that darkness is more than a place of fear. Darkness is a place of growth. We know that. Where emotions can be expressed, we hope with care, but sometimes not. And let us forgive when that happens. And finally, may I suggest that the defiant spark is present within you when the dark descends. And we can learn that even in these moments, we can hold on to the best that is our lives. Amen.